Lately, I've been making casual documentaries for different cities in the Netherlands. I made one for Giton and also for Delft, and then I planned to make one for Texel, but that didn't work out as planned. I had a whole script for different places to check out and stories to tell, like the Texel Lighthouse, the Dunes, Ecomario Museum, Food Forest, some villages in Texel, Aviation and War Museum of Texel, and the Labora Ice Cream Farm. But I made a couple of mistakes which made this documentary unsuccessful. Out of the 7 to 8 places I wanted to check out, I was only able to visit one, which is quite embarrassing, but I still want to share a story of how this documentary went. Texel is an island in the Netherlands. It is the largest Dutch Wadden island, which offers a captivating blend of natural beauty, rich history, and cultural traditions. It's spelled Texel, but it's pronounced Texel in Dutch. This island spans approximately 170 square kilometers and is home to over 13,000 residents. You cannot use a direct train, metro, or car to Texel. You have to first go to Den Helder and then take a ferry to Texel. So in my case, I went from Amsterdam Central to Den Helder. From Den Helder train station, I took a bus to the Texel boot, and from Texel, I took a ferry to Texel. Texel is a ferry service that transports people to Texel and even back from Texel. Can accommodate vehicles, bicycles, and even foot passengers. The first thing I loved about this trip to Texel is that it was my first time on such a huge ship. I've been on smaller ferries before, but on something as huge as this, I was even scared that I might fall in the water if I tried to step outside. Now, when we arrived at Texel, I and my girlfriend, the first thing we did was to rent electric bicycles. Now, this was the first big mistake. Actually, this was the second big mistake. I'll come back to the first big mistake. Texel is such a big city, but for some reason I thought it was a city that we could just bike through to get to the different spots that we had in mind. But instead, we should have used a car so that we could get to these places faster. But yeah, we rented e-bikes, and the first place we checked out was the dunes of Texel National Park. This is the closest place to the ferry, so we decided to start from this place. As you can see, it's really windy, so if you're like me, don't choose February to visit Texel. Choose a better time like during the summer. There are many places in Texel to check out, but with the little time I have today, I'll be visiting just a few places. And the first place we'll be starting with is Welcome in the National Park Duinen van Texel, which is the dunes of Texel. And for that, we're gonna be walking through these dunes and exploring whatever is there to see. Do you know that Texel enjoys more sun compared to other parts of the Netherlands? Texel is known as the sunniest place in the Netherlands with an average of 1,730 hours of sunshine per year compared to the national average of about 1,600 hours. That's just by the side. It was really cold on this day. This was February 10 or 11, if I remember correctly. And this was the first big mistake. Deciding to visit a city like this on such a cold season was terrible. As you can probably tell from the videos, it was very windy, but not just that, it was very cold. I have this thick winter gloves that I use especially when biking in Netherlands, and I can tell you that while making this video on the dunes, my hands were really dying. It was my first time on the dunes, which was a nice experience. I took some lovely pictures, but at this point I was already thinking, if I'm already feeling this way at this time, I just visited one place, I still have 6 other places to go, it's really cold and I have to bike to all these places, how am I going to survive? So at this point I was already doubting why I decided to do this documentary on a day like this on a bicycle. The Texel Lighthouse is a symbol of Texel's rich maritime history. It stands 45 meters above sea level and offers visitors panoramic views of the North Sea, Wadden Sea, and neighboring islands. This was the top of my list to check out for this documentary. So at this point, I'm already thinking, even if I can't visit all these other places because it's too cold, because it's too far, let me at least see the Texel Lighthouse. So I and my girlfriend decided to bike towards this place. is. By the way, when we rented our bicycles, we were given this map that we could easily follow. We were biking there, but we took a break at a restaurant because it was really cold. Our hands were dying. It was really windy. At this point, I was even having a running nose. At the restaurant, we got coffee. We chilled there a bit until we set back on the road to get to the Texel lighthouse. After a short break, we headed back to the road. On our way to the Texel lighthouse, we passed through different forests. We saw different views, different houses. It was all nice until I think probably 45 minutes after biking, we tried to check the maps to see where we currently were, and we discovered that we hadn't even gotten to the half point to the Texel lighthouse. So after biking for like almost 5 days, well, not 5 days, after biking for more than an hour or so, following this map, just realized that we are just at 48. This is where the tower is, and these are the many things I thought I could do. And yeah, choosing to ride a bicycle was a very bad choice, and at this point I feel like we should probably just go back. This is where the ferry service is. The Texel lighthouse is just at the other end. In total, we've probably biked like an hour 30 minutes or 2 hours, and then we imagine how much biking we still had to do to get to the lighthouse, then talk about how much biking we have to do to get back to the ferry. So at this point, we gave up on the documentary. But at that point, I was thinking, what am I going to use all these videos I've made today for? It's not just going to waste. And so instead of making a Texel documentary, I thought about this title, A Field Trip to Texel. So at this point, we had to start thinking of how to bike back to the ferry, which was already getting late. I think that was probably like 5 p.m. already. But before getting back to the ferry, we decided to get some fish. How do you come to a place like Texel, full of water, full of beaches, and not get fish? So we saw this nice restaurant. We had some fish there. This was 29 euros. Wow. Is it worth it?
We'll see.
We'll see. Well, it was a nice dinner, but my time in Texel has come to an end. It was nice, and then we headed back to the ferry. This was a very long trip. It was probably like an hour or 45 minutes of biking, and biking in the night. There weren't even street lights. There were rarely cars on the way. It was just us and the flashlights on our bike. It was such a nice experience anyways, and eventually we got to the ferry and headed back home. There was a lot I wanted to tell about this city, but it just didn't work out. It was just wrong timing, wrong calculations. Using a car would have even been better regardless of the weather, or going there in summer would have just been better overall. It was still a nice time for I and my girlfriend to hang out and talk about our relationship and, you know, just talk about whatever we had to talk about. Texel is a nice place to check out though. Some of the places I highlighted at the beginning of this video, you can check them out or make your findings online. I'm really sorry that I couldn't tell the story of Texel yet. I'll probably go to Texel again in the summer and be able to make that documentary that I wanted to. I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it was a fail. But see you in my next video, and please subscribe if you want to learn about more cities in Netherlands.